Hello there and welcome back to my channel. My name is Giselle and I'm trying out an interesting experiment which involves myself, The Sims and parallel realities. Last time we set up our Sim in her small cozy house, found her a boring realistic job and filled her fridge with items from my own diet. Then, off screen, I practically fast forwarded through her weekend, where she met some of the neighbors who popped in and who she ignored for the most part, and managed to get her to make a meat based meal since she now has a slightly higher cooking skill. Since she had some time left before work on the Monday morn, I made her continue reading her cooking skill book, then released her to the world of work, asking her to work hard. She had a promotion by the time she got back on the very first day, which I had not been expecting, to be honest. And this is where her life is going to now split for the first time into two separate realities. Don't forget, this channel is about the law of assumption, not getting through a Sim's life with most success. So, in our first save file, she was required to keep going in exactly the way she had up to now. In other words, she was going to stick to the food diet that is exactly like mine in real life, keep her boring office job, and start saving to buy herself a sofa and another bookcase and more books. In other words, she was supposed to and is going to, throughout this experiment, represent the old version of me before I learned of the power of the law of assumption. I must warn before going on that one of our real life cats, Frankie, decided to lay on my wrist throughout the gameplay for the version 1 of this experiment for this episode. He seems clearly intrigued, and therefore that is why at times the mouse movements might look choppy or like I was about to press the wrong thing, and in general my control of the game seems a bit off. And now back to our version 1. What happened till Friday night? So, in our version 1, she got fired almost immediately after the split in timeline for raising the alarm about something fraudulent happening at her workplace. It was one of those multiple choice pop up questions, and although it did warn from the outset that choosing to expose the issue would get her fired, as well as give her some temporary fame, I had to, in the name of the experiment, anyway, choose for her to raise the alarm since it is what I personally would have done in her stead. So she found yet another business job and started over from the bottom rung once again. And here I must apologize again in case if you are hearing some purring in the background and some of the sound clips. It's because my other cat has decided now to make her voice heard. Meanwhile, she was doing better with the cooking, and I managed to get her to cook some of the fish she had bought last in the last episode. She is batch cooking. I'm sorry, that's the cat again. She is batch cooking to save on ingredients as well as time. And also, her berries started growing, and she harvested a few. So we know what she's whipping up next. Another big fruit salad. In those first few days, she also met a teen, Cassandra Gott, who came to visit for no reason out of the blue and watched just a part of one movie. Generally, the rest of the time she was moping around days trying to catch up with the long work hours, the extra work she needed to do from home for the job, as well as the housework. Oh, and she also started knitting since it seems her creative bucket list wish is to excel at knitting. And it is something I have done myself at times in the past, so it is in keeping with the sim version in our experiment. Meanwhile, she's also started facing a midlife crisis that will be slow to go away, considering that the list of things it comprises are things that aren't really in keeping with what she can achieve right now in the game. And to end our version 1 for today on a good note, she managed by Friday night to buy the sofa that she was saving towards. And that is where I left my version 1 sim in order to start the version 2 experiment, where Giselle in version 2 will be changing some of the assumptions, therefore having a totally different, hopefully, outcome to her work week. I was originally intending to change two things in our version 2. One of them being the diet. However, till the end of the work week, she still didn't need any new groceries. So for now, I'm just letting her cook things depending on what's already in the fridge. So I didn't exactly change anything there for now. The other thing was something that definitely had to change, both for my sim and hopefully also for my real self soon enough, and that is the job description. The assumption that her job was the safest route and that she might not be good enough to handle more creative work or make as much from it had to go. So, in this save file, my sim went on to buy an easel rather than saving up for her sofa, because I was intending to make sure she would change her career before the end of the week. The result of this version was more interesting. It started out just like in our version 1, where on the Tuesday morning, the sim went back to her business job for what I was hoping would be her last day. The same pop up came up for her as it had for our version 1 sim, where she was asked to choose between exposing fraud going on at her job or else ignoring it. And at first, I was going to tell her to ignore it uh, in order to see how that further changes the story from our version 1. However, I figured since she anyway wanted to leave her job, might as well do it whilst gaining a bit of fame, considering that I wanted her to start selling her paintings and it might help her up the prices. Although she came home none too pleased about being fired, she soon forgot about it as she happily painted the hours away and got hired at her new job, which she loved better. By the Friday afternoon, the second version of my sim was much more successful than the one in version 1. She had advanced in both her painting skill and the writing skill, had sold multiple paintings, and even written a children's book. She seemed to have much more time to catch up with everything. Likely, this was because she was doing things she loved to earn herself skills and money, rather than having to do more boring work from home that was leading nowhere, like in the business career. At first, the money was slower coming in, and after her laundry got soaked in the rain, she had to wait a while before she could buy herself a tumble dryer to make her life easier and give her more time to focus on other things. She also came back dazed after her first day at the new job, so I had her take a vacation leave on the following day to recuperate. Since she was painting for multiple hours a day and I was asking her to work hard when at work, she got promoted on both the days I sent her to her new artsy job. By the end of her work week, she was feeling upbeat, had more money than her version 1 counterpart, and with no sign of a midlife crisis coming on. She'd also had one lovely outing to the Willow Creek Library for a game of chess and some reading. That's where she met her now good friend Rarahu, who she is hanging out with this Friday night. She also bought some popcorn shrimp from a stall outside the library and learned a new recipe. And so our episode today concludes with both Sims at home on the Friday afternoon, where, at the start of our next episode, their lives are going to get somewhat similar again, with the introduction of a new character in both their lives. Curious? Then click the subscribe button to ensure not to miss the next episode when sushi comes to stay.